Hello BookTube, my name is Juan, I'm just one reader, and today I'm here to recommend you some books that are just fantastic reads and that are very conveniently under 200 pages. Now, everybody loves fast-paced short books. Even if you are the sort of reader who really enjoys a lot of literary fiction or very literary books and, really dense, beautifully written books that are usually over 500 pages, which I tend to also enjoy here and there. I mean, not all the time. I try to read widely and with some variety, but let's just face it, everyone loves a good quality, beautifully written but short book. They are great for vacations and for readathons, and they just give you it just gives you so much joy and so much excitement to read something so well crafted and that is also very short. And it just, in my experience, reading a book like that really pumps me and motivates me to keep reading more and more. So I put up a selection of, I think it's 9 books that are very much to my liking. I thought they were excellently well written. I loved the books in terms of quality, but they are also under 200 pages. So let's just jump right into it. The first one is a collection of short stories by Kirsty Logan. This was her first collection and her first published work, I believe. It's called The Rental Heart and Other Fairy Tales. This one is published by Salt, and it is roughly in the 141 pages long. It's a beautiful collection. I just felt that Kirsty Logan's writing was completely beautiful. All the stories had a very distinctive feel to them, and I just wanted to read every sentence so slowly and with so much care, because Kirsty Logan's writing in this one, to me, it felt like it had a very particular texture, and I almost felt like I could taste her words. And there's a story in here actually about a person who likes to eat words, and it felt exactly like that. Like I just wanted to eat this book up in the literal sense. So there's that one. Another one that is also a collection of short stories is Haruki Murakami's After the Quake. Now, this is not my favorite Murakami work or collection. I much prefer The Elephant Vanishes, but that is longer, much longer. This one is quite short. It's 147 pages long, and the stories are very, very unsettling, very discomforting. Like, they're a little bit magical, not so much in content and what actually goes on in the stories, but they're very magical in the way that the narrative envelops you, and the way that Murakami sort of draws a circle around you. It's I don't know how to explain myself properly without sounding psychotic, really, but there's just something about his writing and his turn of phrase that makes you feel like you are much more in a fairy tale than in real life. At least that's how his writing style feels to me. But yeah, this collection is also beautiful. Next up is a children's classic, and it's The 13 Clocks by James Thurber. I read this very recently, and I mentioned it in my latest wrap-up, I think. This is incredibly short. It's 124 pages long. It is absolutely wacky, playful, crazy. It's Neil Gaiman's favorite book, so you can imagine just how amazing and inspiring this book is. It's just absolutely brilliant, playful. I already said playful. It's just filled with whimsy and hysterically funny characters and songs and rhymes and puns and clever jokes and all the good things in life. Then is a book that not very many people have read, or at least they're not discussing it. On BookTube, I don't think I've ever seen this book, and it's Big Fish, the one that originated the very popular movie, and when I was living in New York City, they also adapted this into the stage, and it was a hell of a musical. I saw it like 4 times. It was just, I was crying every time. It was just beautiful. And the book is a very simple one, but I think it's a very beautiful one too. You should not expect this book to be like the most literary wondrous thing in the world, because I don't think it is, but it's very beautiful. It touches on some strings that are very emotional, and it's all about fatherhood and what it means to be a father and identity, and how as children we all get messages from our parents, and how our family's histories or legacy are passed down onto us. And I think it's a really beautiful book. This is by Daniel Wallace, and it is 191 pages, I think, in my edition. Next up is another children's classic, Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. This is around 180 pages long. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a classic. I don't really know what else to say. It has a lot to do, well, it has to do with immortality and life and death and longing and desire. It's beautifully written. The next one is a classic ghost story, and it is Another Turn of the Screw by Henry James. In this Spanish translated edition that I read, this book is 180 pages long, including the foreword by the author, and I really loved this book. It was not like the ghost story that I was expecting. It's a very weird book, and I'm still not sure if I really got it, if I really understood it to the fullest extent, but it's definitely a very beautifully written, gothic feeling kind of book, and I loved the way it was written and the way that he managed to create this tension and this feeling of dread and uncertainty. And I just love it when a writer can really creep me out without really giving me something worthy of creeping me out, if that makes any sense. So I really loved it, and I can definitely see myself rereading it. The next one is quite similar in terms of how creepy it was, very subtly unsettling, and it is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I also read this quite recently, and I'm still thinking about it constantly. It is 195 pages long. It is super fast, super engrossing, and it's just one of the most horrific books I've read. It is truly devastatingly terrifying, and I'm not even sure why. I guess it's just kind of like a very alien book. It doesn't really deal with aliens, at least not that I'm aware of. By the way, this is the first installment in the Southern Reach trilogy. I have not read the second and third installments in the trilogy, but just from this first book in the series, I don't think there's anything alien about what happens here, but it feels very alien. It feels very different. It feels like there's some kind of really external danger. It's a book that feels you with dread and anxiety, and it is also one of the most beautifully written sci-fi novels that I have read, and it's probably one of the most beautifully written books I've read, period, because what Jeff Vandermeer does with language in terms of how he expresses and how he describes certain feelings and certain images and perceptive experiences is just very weird, but it's totally worth your time. The next one is a book that everyone on BookTube has heard about, and probably most of you have already read it. It's one of my favorite books ever, and it is 181 pages long, It is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Uncle Neil. Yes. Neil Gaiman wrote this book kind of unintentionally. He was originally writing a short story. I think it was a short story for his wife. But then it started blossoming and flourishing, and it became this weird thing called The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I'm not going to say anything about the plot because I think it's the perfect book to just go into not knowing anything about it. It is absolutely beautiful and haunting and devastating, and it just spoke to me very personally. And the last book I am recommending you today is 127 pages, so it is extremely short, and it's extremely short, and it is by Stephen King, and it's The Cycle of the Werewolf. This is, it feels almost like a graphic novel, but it's not, it's a novella. It has these beautiful pictures. It's divided in 12 sections, one for each month of the year, and the story is about this American town, small town, with a very Stephen King-ish cast of characters, and of course the supernatural element of the werewolf and the danger of these attacks. And it's just a wonderful story. I absolutely adored it. It is a condensation, in my opinion, of everything that Stephen King does. But yeah, it's everything that Stephen King does, but at its best. And I just really recommend it. When I read it, I was just smiling the entire time. Like, it was just wonderful to see that an author can pack so much in so little. So there you go, guys. That was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to comment and tell me everything about these books, or which books would you recommend that are also under 200 pages. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next one.